Ever wonder who's really pulling the strings behind those seemingly ordinary community banks? You know, the places with the friendly tellers, the local ads, the "we're here for you" vibe? Today, we're diving deep into one of those institutions, Patriot Bank. But instead of just giving you a name, we're going to unravel the complex web of ownership that often hides in plain sight. Think about it. We see the logo, maybe even recognize a few employees. But who actually owns the bank? Is it a single wealthy individual? A faceless corporation? Maybe a group of local investors? The truth, as you'll soon discover, is often far more intricate. Before we get to Patriot Bank specifically, let's establish some foundational knowledge. Banks, especially those with a regional or community focus, can have a variety of ownership structures. Traditionally, smaller banks were often owned by local families or groups of business leaders. This fostered a sense of community ownership and direct investment in the area. But as the financial landscape evolved, so did bank ownership. We saw the rise of holding companies, larger entities that own and control multiple banks. This allows for greater efficiency, economies of scale, and access to capital. However, it also means that the local bank you see on Main Street might be a small piece of a much larger, more complex puzzle. Then there are publicly traded banks, where shares are bought and sold on stock exchanges. This means ownership is distributed among potentially thousands of shareholders, from individual investors to large institutional funds. In this scenario, no single entity might hold a majority stake, but their collective decisions can significantly impact the bank's direction. And of course, we can't forget about private equity firms and investment groups. These entities often acquire stakes in banks, aiming to restructure, improve efficiency, and ultimately sell their holdings for a profit. Their involvement can bring valuable expertise, but it also raises questions about the bank's long-term commitment to the community. So, with this context in mind, let's focus on Patriot Bank. Now, to get to the core of this discussion, we need to understand that Patriot Bank might refer to different entities depending on the location and context. There are several banks across the United States that use the name Patriot or variations of it. This itself is a common tactic in the financial industry. It is very important to understand that there is no one single Patriot Bank that is a national entity. For the purpose of this examination, we will focus on Patriot National Bancorp Incorporated, which operates Patriot Bank N.A. This specific entity is a publicly traded company. This is a very important distinction. This means that the ownership is distributed among its shareholders. When a company is publicly traded, it means that its shares are available for purchase on a stock exchange, like the Nasdaq. This creates a fluid ownership structure, where the percentage of ownership held by any individual or entity can change constantly. To get a clearer picture, we need to look at the bank's regulatory filings. Publicly traded companies are required to disclose significant information about their operations and ownership to regulatory bodies like the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, in the United States. These filings, such as 10-K reports and proxy statements, provide valuable insights into the bank's financial health, management, and ownership structure. These reports will typically list the largest shareholders, often institutional investors like mutual funds, pension funds, and hedge funds. These entities manage vast sums of money and invest on behalf of their clients. Their holdings can significantly influence the bank's stock price and overall performance. However, it's crucial to remember that these are just the largest shareholders. The actual ownership of a publicly traded company is far more dispersed. Thousands of individual investors, from everyday people to wealthy individuals, may hold smaller stakes in the bank. Therefore, to answer the question, who owns Patriot Bank, we can't point to a single individual or entity. Instead, we must acknowledge that it's a complex network of shareholders, ranging from large institutional investors to individual retail investors. Now you might be thinking, okay, so it's publicly traded, but are there any key figures or influential groups we should know about? That's a valid question. While the ownership is dispersed, certain individuals and groups can exert more influence than others. For example, the bank's board of directors plays a crucial role in setting the bank's strategic direction and overseeing its management. These individuals are elected by the shareholders and are responsible for representing their interests. Their backgrounds, expertise, and connections can significantly impact the bank's decisions. Additionally, the bank's executive management team, including the CEO and other top executives, hold significant sway over the bank's day-to-day operations. Their decisions regarding lending, investments, and other business activities can have a profound impact on the bank's performance and profitability. Furthermore, large institutional investors, as mentioned earlier, can wield considerable influence. Their sheer volume of shares gives them voting power and the ability to influence corporate decisions. They can also exert pressure on management through public statements or private meetings. It is also important to understand the concept of beneficial ownership. This is when an entity or person enjoys the benefits of ownership of a security, even though the security's title is held by another entity. This is very common with large investment firms. Essentially, by examining the SEC filings, we can identify the major players in the bank's ownership structure. We can see who holds the largest stakes, who sits on the board of directors, and who leads the management team. This provides a clearer picture of who is ultimately responsible for the bank's performance and direction. This exploration highlights the fundamental difference between a community bank in the traditional sense and a publicly traded entity. While Patriot Bank may serve local communities and offer familiar services, its ownership structure is far more complex and dispersed. This complexity is not unique to Patriot Bank. It's a reflection of the broader trend in the financial industry, where consolidation and globalization have led to increasingly intricate ownership structures. Understanding these structures is crucial for anyone who wants to understand the financial landscape. It allows us to see beyond the surface and understand the forces that shape our banking institutions. In conclusion, the ownership of Patriot Bank, specifically Patriot National Bancorp Incorporated, is distributed among a diverse group of shareholders, including institutional investors and individual investors. While no single entity holds a majority stake, certain individuals and groups, such as the board of directors and executive management team, exert significant influence. By examining regulatory filings and understanding the dynamics of publicly traded companies, we can gain a clearer picture of who ultimately owns and directs the bank. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.